Hi, Liana.
Hey Paula, how are you?
I'm good. So, before we get into it, I just wanted to give the viewers a little bit of background in terms of how we started working together and what our relationship is, for those who don't know about my personal journey and what brought me to starting Sample It. So, Liana and I started working together back in 2021. I went to her after having two kids and post COVID, really just wanting to get back to feeling good and eating well. I would say that my entire life, now that what I know, I can say that I did not know anything about nutrition or food. And I thought just eat what you want and just exercise really hard. And once I met Liana, she really taught me that you can still eat whatever you want, but by pairing the right foods together and, making sure you're watching your portions and so on. And so I ended up losing nearly 30 pounds with Liana. And it wasn't even just about the weight. I feel like I just learned about food and how to eat properly. And I never have ever felt restricted. I still eat everything. I eat burgers, I eat fries, I eat pizza, I eat sweets. But it's really just about like swapping with the right alternatives and having the right portions and pairing with the right types of food. And so starting to work with Liana and losing a lot of weight and starting to feel really good, I started to go down this rabbit hole about what is in our food that we're eating and making sure that I was picking the healthier swaps. And that's really what brought me to Sample It, in that I was always trying to find these better for you options for my kids, bringing them home. They would try them and sometimes not like them, and I was just wasting. So the story goes on from there about Sample It, but back to our working relationship. So Liana has just been so instrumental in my own personal health journey. And I feel like once I started this Sample It journey, I wanted her to be a part of it and come on as the nutrition dietitian advisor. She has so much experience working with kids and especially who are picky eaters. So I just thought it would be helpful to kind of bring Liana on here today, talk about her background and ask some questions, some common myths out there that could kind of help people answer some of the questions they might have about nutrition and kids. So I'm done talking, and now I'll hand it over to you, Liana, if you could just give a little bit of background on who you are and your company and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. It's really sweet to hear you say those things. I'm glad that it's worked out. And obviously it's especially important since we've been together for years and years. We've known each other. So I'm so happy that you're feeling good. A little bit about me. My business is Engaging Nutrition. I am a registered and licensed dietitian, and I have my master's in nutrition. I've worked with kids for almost 20 years. I worked at Boston Children's for about 18, and I've been counseling families and working with kids in my special hands-on snack class for, I think it's been 11 years in my private practice and probably 7 years running my Fun with Food, which is now Little Food Explorers class. So I just find such pleasure and joy in helping people find their nutrition journey to help them meet their goals, and especially helping families and kids having food freedom, learning about balanced nutrition, and more importantly, helping these kids grow.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think what's like very unique about you is you help the entire family. You're not just about helping the parents or helping the kids, but nutrition really starts in the home. Yeah. And it impacts everybody. So I think it's really helpful that that you work with everybody within the family. So can you talk a little bit about the Fun with Food camps that you do with the kids? And what are the common things that you're seeing about like parents struggling with kids who are very picky or who are not getting the right nutrition in? Like, what are the common things that I think would be helpful for people to hear about and realize like there are certain strategies that they can implement to kind of help?
Yeah, I think that it's really nice being able to work on the whole family and help them. Usually what happens is I'll have a parent, maybe the mom, come to me and say, listen, we're really struggling in our house with feeding our kids. I would love some guidance, and hopefully you can help us navigate it, starting with, the kids first. And then usually we talk about the parents, or I'll have a parent come to me first with their concerns, and then it will sort of like spread to the roots of the family. The classes I run are intended to be very positive, low pressure, and fun. So I think the important piece of it is that it's fun for the kids and it's engaging. We have snack together that we create, and then the hope is that they try it and eat it. I use the Staples That Was Easy button. If anybody has seen that button, it tends to really help like entice them and get them excited. Like if they've tried it, or if they've eaten the snack and it's new, they hit the button and they get really excited and proud that they've done it. Typically, what I'm finding is the families will come to me and say, hey, we're struggling at home to feed our kid. It's a battle. I'm really concerned with the limited amount that my child is eating. Oftentimes, the kids have ADHD, where the parents are feeling like they're very black and white about the way they're eating. They're very particular about the brands they have to have or the color of the food. And then sometimes, the class is really intended for any kid that wants to snack. So it's not like I'm only having kids in the class that are picky. I do have kids that love to just create foods and enjoy food. So it's a nice mix of both. I think for parents that are struggling with feeding their kids, my hope is to ease their stress. And so we often will meet one-on-one with the child. I've actually had a couple visits this week that have gone really well with families where the parents are really concerned with how limited the foods are at home, or the parents are really just concerned about their growth or the fact that they won't try it. And I think we tend to get stuck, like it's winter where we are, and our food options are very different compared to our summer. So I tend to like tell people too, like, it's okay if you feel kind of bored. The visits are intended for us to like come up with some new ideas, new snack ideas. Sometimes the kids are struggling and they're not eating lunch at school. So we incorporate all of those ideas and sort of come up with a plan that works for the family, whether they meet with me one-on-one or if they come to my class. I'm giving the families tips in between, sharing the recipes with them. And really the intention is for them to like nourish and nibble and have fun. And we want to really make it a positive relationship with food. That's what I'm aiming for.
There's always a cat jumping up on me.
That's okay.
We have them in my house. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I love the emphasis on the fun piece, which is a big part of Sample It too, and making it more of an experience and fun and pressure-free and light. And which is why we have like the scorecard with stickers. So I think like as a parent, and I'm guilty of this too, like oftentimes I'll have like a chicken that I just made and I want my kids to try it and they don't want to try it. And I'm just like, just try it. I promise you'll like it. And you get so frustrated and you just like want them to do it. But you have to remember, like, take a step back and kind of get into their head and like what is going to actually motivate them to try. Right. And making it fun and pressure-free is always helpful. But you talked about like parents' stress with getting the right nutrition in their kids and they're not eating enough. And obviously, as a parent of 2 young kids, I feel the same way. Can you talk a little bit about, there's so much out there, there's so much information around like what we're supposed to be feeding our kids and what is considered healthy and what's not. Can you just like dumb it down and simplify it? And like, what is the actual important things that parents should actually look for when it comes to feeding their kids?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of times the kids that I'm seeing are lacking iron and they're lacking fiber. So listen, I think that as a parent, you do the best that you can to try to offer your kids clean foods or foods that the family like who's feeding them often has, right? But sometimes we're not doing the best job we can with offering them a variety of foods, even foods that the parent doesn't usually eat. So I think we want to try to keep like a balanced idea of what a meal would look like. So 3 to 4 food groups, not trying to be too restrictive in terms of what those are. I think that calories are really important. So we don't want, what we want to do is make sure that the kids are being fed, especially the little ones, like if they're 2, 3, 4, 5, we want to make sure they're getting like higher calorie options. A lot of times the kids might just be eating, pancakes by themselves, or they might just be having, just yogurt. And so the nutrients that I'm more concerned about at the younger stages are iron and fiber. I think that what I try to do is help guide the parents. Okay, what are you typically seeing at home that is consistent with what they're eating? And how do we add to that? I think a lot of people think that they come to see me and they're like, oh, she's going to take these things away or judge me. And the last thing I want to do is judge anybody. I'm a parent, and I've been there too when my kids were younger. My son is 14, my daughter's 11, and I feel like it can be really hard when you're stressed about what they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
So adding to the list of foods that they're having instead of taking things away, trying to pair familiar foods with the foods they're already with new foods can be really helpful too, because they have their safe food that they're eating, but then you're offering them a food that you can choose. So you could say, okay, Max, this week we're going to try a new vegetable or a new fruit, and how about we choose between these two, and then you can let him pick. And then you pair it with the familiar food he's eating. Maybe that's yogurt and mac and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in terms of the actual nutrients, I'm definitely thinking about calories. I'm thinking about fat. I'm thinking about fiber. And in the toddler stages and the young kids, I tend to find that they really don't eat a lot of meat. A lot of the kids that come to my classes are selective when it comes to like their protein sources.
Mm-hmm.
They won't eat meat or chicken. So we want to try to be creative in that way. And this is where it's helpful to meet with me, because I can take a look at their diet and assess what they might be lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Ingredients wise, I think the word clean is such like a vibe word. It's like so trendy with like, well, I want to make sure that I'm offering clean ingredients. But the truth is, some of the clean ingredients may not be the healthiest for, like for instance, if you think about a food that might be coming in a package, like one of the options that we've been offering for Sample It, the ones that I've gone through the list with you and you've decided to move forward with them. I think that we want whole foods for sure. So like, whole wheat or oats or more natural sweeteners, right? I would definitely not be offering them like sugar substitutes like Splenda and things like that. But I also think that it's helpful to think about like the source of the fat. So like olive oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil if there's not an allergy. The tropical oils are one of those things where people think like coconut is really clean, but it actually has a high saturated fat content. So again, for a kid, I'm not really as worried. Like I don't want the parent to stress too much about it. But I think if your only source of fat at home and in the products you're looking for is tropical oils, that is something that I would try to be cautious of in terms of trying to offer more unsaturated fat options.
And when you say tropical fruit oils, are you talking like palm
fruit and coconut? Yeah.
Palm coconut, yeah. Let's actually use one of the snacks that have been in the Sample It box as an example for how a parent might look at the nutrition and see if this is a good option for their child. So this is Carlitos, and I know it's going to be hard to see, so I'm just going to read it.
That's okay. I'm actually pulling it up on my end too, so I can see it.
So we have total fat is 6 grams, saturated 0.5, and trans fat 0. So in that fat lens, we're good there, I assume.
Yeah. So in order to double check that, you would look in the ingredients here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paula, but it's organic red lentil, organic white rice, organic cauliflower, organic avocado oil, and sea salt are the ingredients.
Yes.
Yeah. So those ingredients are fantastic. So there's no hydrogenated oil in there or hydrogenated soybean oil. So we know it's clear of trans fat. I think that 6 grams of total fat for this snack is fantastic. It's filling. Fat is satiating, which will help fill the kid's belly. It has 2 grams of fiber, which is also excellent for a snack for a child. And that's due to the lentil providing the fiber. The fat source specifically is the avocado oil. The protein is 4 grams for this snack, which is also really good. This snack is, like, in my opinion, 5 stars. I love the ingredients, and I love that it's actually going to help fill their bellies. When we first started this conversation today, you had talked about some of the stuff that you learned from me. And one concept that I work with kids and adults on is pairing foods together. I really think that if you're eating just one food, you may not feel as full. If you pair foods together, think about a meal, right? You would have 3 to 4 food groups. Well, I like to approach snacks as having at least 2 food groups paired together, and that would be fiber and protein. Now, this snack is fantastic, and it gives a little bit of both, but I would recommend a family to pair this with like maybe an apple or, some grapes, or they could even pair it with like, a string cheese, something like that. So trying to optimize the nutrition and help us stay full is also helpful.
Yeah. And let's be honest for a minute. So, obviously, in a perfect world, we would want our kids to only be eating whole foods. But we know in today's world, that's not realistic all the time. We're on the go all the time. We're going to sports, where the kids are always, wanting snacks. If they're cranky, you want to give them a snack. Yeah. So, that is why, even though it's not ideal to have packaged snacks, we look for the ones that are better for you, right? The ones that have better ingredients, that have some sort of nutrition, component in it. And so you're not going to find something that's perfect that comes in a bag or a box, because it's not whole foods. When I select these snacks, when I curate the snacks and I send them to you from a nutrition standpoint, I say, like, you always say to me, that's kind of like eating air, and we don't want to be giving empty calories, an empty snack that's going to fill them up that has no nutrition value. So I think it's really helpful when we see some of these snacks having fiber and having protein in there.
Yes, I agree. Yes. And I do say that often, because especially for kids, right? We don't want them just eating something that's not going to help them stay full. They're just going to keep wanting to snack. But the same concept is for us, right? Yeah. Like if we just had one rice cake or 3 to 4 little carrots, like it's not going to hold you. So less isn't better. Mm-hmm. And I think what we want to try and do is not have necessarily like rules for the kids. We're like, well, if you eat this, you have to have this with you. But it's nice to encourage that combination to help them stay full and help them grow. The other part of this that I feel like I can't avoid talking about is the fact that, the new dietary guidelines for Americans came out. And I won't get into all the details about that. I could do a whole other presentation on that. But, there is a lot of discussion around processed foods and certain additives and ingredients that you want to avoid. And I think just for families in general, having those resources is so important. Harvard Medical School has their own MyPlate, and they also have a MyPlate version for kids that I really love to refer to, because now the USDA MyPlate is no longer an option to view on the website. The thing I wanted to mention is I really love this group called Center for Science of the Public Interest, CSPI. The reason why I bring it up is because, ingredients are constantly evolving. And this group is a nonprofit group that does research on basically the food additives and what the safety rating is. And so it's evidence-based to show you what certain ingredients or additives to avoid, which ones you should have in moderation, and which ones are safe. So I'm often referring to this reference to give families and my clients some knowledgeable and reliable information. The website is The Chemical Cuisine. So, certain ingredients that I think parents are afraid of may not be that scary. Mm-hmm. And it may be safe. So I definitely think that checking your references and where you're learning the information is important.
Yeah. It's not always going to be, from an influencer on Instagram or TikTok.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, also like, regarding the processed foods, because I know that was one thing you brought up, like, yeah, we would love to be offering only whole foods all the time, but that's just not practical. And I think like there is a lot of research around processed foods and which ones are minimally processed. Like I'm going to tell you, I think approaching a processed food like oatmeal, like I love the Kodiak brand oatmeal. I make the protein energy balls from my class with that brand, and I eat those myself. Like approaching a food like that versus like Trix, or Fruit Loops, it's not really in the same category. I think ready-to-eat cereal is a food that often kids enjoy, and I try to push for the more wholesome options, like Kashi makes a great one, Puffins, especially if some of these kids are deficient in iron and fiber. So I think we just also want to have an open mind as parents. Like the more we restrict the kids, and it might be unintentionally, the harder it might be for you to actually get them to eat more variety. Like I hear from a lot of kids, well, we don't have that at our house, or we're not allowed to have that. And I think like making room for that food flexibility and food freedom is important, and understanding that certain versions of it are okay to have.
Yeah.
And will help your child grow.
I totally agree. And I think it's, like I said, a balance. So like for me, even though I run this company Sample It, that doesn't mean that I feed my kids perfectly.
Yeah.
On the
Well,
weekend,
none of us do.
right?
Yeah.
And on the weekends, I feel like I let everything kind of go out the window. We go to the movies, I let them get candy. We go out,
Yes. Right.
so because they're kids, and like you said, you don't want to restrict them, or that can backfire, twofold. But what are some, like, we're talking about ingredients here. What are some of the ingredients that like stand out to you that you kind of we see a lot in food that's like a hard no? Like for me, it's like no dyes. I'm not going to have like red 40 or blue 1 or yellow 1 in any of the food I give my kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I think what you do most of the time is what matters. I think if you're having incidences where like, you give them Sour Patch Kids, you're at the movie theater, fine. But for the most part, yes, I would be very cautious of the dyes, especially for kids that have ADHD. The dyes can help increase hyperactivity. I really would avoid artificial sweeteners. Granted, some of them are safe depending on how much you have. But again, this chemical cuisine is a fantastic resource to be able to look at some of those things. We just know that.
An example, like a sucralose, I know is one that you always say is really bad. What are some other artificial sweeteners?
Yeah. So,
and what are some sweeteners that are okay, like in monk fruit?
Yes. Monk fruit, honey, maple syrup, like the more natural ones. I also want to make a point to say, like, if you have a kid, I'm seeing a lot more kids that have ARFID, which is this avoidant restrictive disorder. And so I also want to just let families know, like, if you have a kid who's really restrictive and losing weight, their growth is an issue, they're having sensory issues with eating. It's not just that they're picky. We also do the best we can with trying to guide them. Like if they're eating muffins because that's what they'll eat, okay. Mm-hmm. If they're only eating Doritos because that's the snack that they'll have at school, okay. Like I think we also need to kind of approach this from like the perspective of where you are with your family at this point in time.
Yeah. And I think we're lucky that we live in a time that there are so many better alternatives that are being produced by these brands now because of all the recognition of some of these harmful ingredients. So back to what you were saying earlier around like choosing Kashi over Trix or Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like now, like we're able to swap out Fruit Loops for the Three Wishes cereal, the fruity flavor Three Wishes cereal. That's high in protein, it has clean ingredients, and it's delicious. So I think it's about, again, finding the alternatives that kind of feels like you're still having that treat or sweet, but it's just made with better ingredients. And that's really what the mission of Sample It is to give those samples.
Exactly. Yeah. We want to try to have, it's a feel better snack, right? And it is really, in my opinion and experience, all about the swap. Yeah. But with that said, I also think like, having that option, the Three Wishes is excellent. Like I use that cereal often in my class when we do yogurt parfaits. We make our own trail mix. But we also use other cereals too, like the Kashi so I think variety is important. And I think the more you just sort of allow and enable your child to eat the same brand all the time. I mean, we get sick of foods all the time when we were to repeat the same thing every day for months at a time. So including that variety is really important because you also want to have them just be exposed to the different foods, right, at a young age.
So what is like one strategy that you've given families that you repeatedly hear is super helpful for them to do at home in trying to get their kids to try new foods?
I really it just goes back to that fun and low pressure. So one thing I talk to families about is, okay, first, let's get the buy-in from the kid. Like, what are some things that you would like to have that maybe you're not having now? If they can't think of anything, usually I'll go through the list of foods that they're usually eating. And then I'll think of like, okay, it seems like you're eating more fruits and you're having some grains. How about we try a new vegetable? Or what if we just add like a protein to the meal that you haven't had in a while? It's funny. I feel like some families, they report like the kids will eat certain foods at a restaurant, but if you try to make that food at home, it's a struggle. And so I had that right. Hibachi, like that. Yeah. So like what I did is I spoke to this one particular family about like, okay, you love to have steak and white rice at hibachi. Why don't we try to have that at home? We can try to make it in a similar way and we'll pair it with the foods that we know are your safe foods that you usually have at dinner, call it mac and cheese. So the intention isn't to make more work for the family, but it's trying to help them understand that like it's okay because it's different. And we want you to just try to be trying some of these other options so that you can add to the list. So to make it fun, first you try to like not even make it a big deal during dinner, right? Okay, this is what we're going to have. You talk about everything else except the food. Talk about what activities you have coming up. Talk about what's going on this weekend. Tell me about your day at school. And then the other piece that can be really great is I think having some sort of reward system, like a positive reward, really goes a long way. So I tell families like you could try a sticker chart, or one thing I really find benefit out of is like a cotton ball jar. So let's say they try the steak and the rice and they have strawberries with it or pasta with it, and the child tries it and eats it. Whether it's a go or not, you put the cotton ball in the jar, and the kids can start to see the cotton ball jar adding up, and the parents or the caregiver can then decide, okay, you've reached 6 cotton balls, here's your prize. So it's not something that you have to do forever, but it's definitely something that helps the momentum.
Yeah. It's almost like they forget that they're even trying new foods because they're just having fun with it, which is
Exactly.
like the taste test game in the sample it box is meant to just make it fun. And they kind of forget that they're trying something that they've never tried before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want them to feel that like pride and excitement. Like I love hearing from families like she couldn't wait to tell you that she tried this and loved it. Or we couldn't wait to tell you that after class we went home and made it this weekend and he wanted to send you a picture. Like it's really about the joy of eating.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell families how they can work with you if they are, struggling with some of these issues and they're looking for some support? The Sample It customers are all over the country. So tell us a little bit about how somebody could work with you and, do you take insurance and how someone can get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks so much. So on the Sample It website, I am featured there, and there is a way for you to go to my website. You can directly set up a meeting through Calendly on Zoom through my website. You can always reach out to me via email or my phone number. Engaging Nutrition is the best way to approach that. And then on my Instagram, I'm often posting information about my classes and also just general education. That's Engaging Nutrition. I do accept insurance plans. Right now, I'm accepting Blue Cross, Harvard Pilgrim, and United Healthcare. I'm going to be accepting more insurances within the next 2 months. I'm working on that right now. I think whether you're somebody that wants to do a one-to-one with me on Zoom with you and your child, or you want to start with yourself, I would love to, get to know you and be able to help guide your family. I include meal plans, snack ideas, any helpful resources after we meet. And then in terms of the classes, if you're local to Massachusetts, my office is in Swampscott. So I run like a weekly class, and then I offer the pop-up camps too. And we'll be having some fun sessions this summer. So my website's definitely the best way to find all that information out.
And as you were just saying that, I was just pulling up, I have a food photo album in my phone of all Liana meal plans and snack ideas and what to pair what with. And it's like hundreds of things. So I can't recommend Liana enough. I have my personal, experience with her, and I really can't recommend her enough. And I think we live in a time where we're so lucky that we can do virtual meetings.
Yes.
And especially that you take insurance. A lot of nutritionists and dietitians do not accept insurance. So I think that's huge because that can be a barrier. So thanks so much, Liana.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think, some people might be hesitant to meet on Zoom because they find like, well, the kid might be antsy or it may not be the best, but honestly, it tends to go well. We don't need the child to join the whole time. If it's for a kid who's younger, and, depending if I don't take your insurance and you pay out of pocket, the child may not even need to be present. So we can always work something out. But I have clients that I work with, families that I work with from all over. I mean, Arizona, California. So it's definitely helpful, I think, to be able to have that access. So thank you so much, Paula. It was so great to chat with you.
You too, Liana. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your background.
Thanks for having me be part of the team.
Of course.
Bye.